It's a pleasure to be here and appreciate the afternoon discussion with you all, and actually a great panel that we have. Although it might not lead the nightly news or be subject to a presidential tweet storm, agriculture, as you all know, is a vital, important topic that keeps our countries healthy and provides millions of jobs in our respective countries in North America. The recent political rhetoric, however, surrounding North American trade does make the issue more complicated for those that actually practice and work and depend on the industry between the United States and Mexico. And so today's panel will give us a perspective of just how important that industry is and what are the opportunities that exist in helping grow and expand that, the scale. To give you a perspective, a snapshot, the U.S. exports $18 billion in ag-related products to Mexico every year, and that is a number that is growing. In the inverse, the relationship is just as valuable between the U.S. and Mexico in that it exports from the U.S. to Mexico $21 billion. To make that number or those numbers more tangible, in the avocado industry, for example, Mexico accounts for nearly 90% of avocados imported into the United States. And on the other hand, the U.S. is one of the world's leading producers of corn crop, and Mexico is responsible for $2.6 billion of that export yearly. It is more important than ever that the U.S. and Mexico have a strong and mutually beneficial relationship in agriculture for sure, but in all areas of the relationship generally. In Mexico, through the Carlos Slim Foundation that I have the honor of working with, we founded the Centro Internacional para el Mejoramiento de Maíz y Trigo, whose main mission is to enable Mexican and international researchers to introduce better agricultural practices that help farmers be more productive in corn and wheat production. By combining the latest breakthroughs in technology and agricultural science, farming practices have been bettered and thereby providing better quality jobs and opportunities for rural farmers in Mexico. Clearly helping poor farming families increase production in a sustainable way and selling those crops in a more efficient manner produce better jobs, thereby reducing hunger and reducing poverty and strengthening our economies in the long term. Even though the work of CIMAT is significant, there is much to be done. And luckily today, we have a great panel that is going to walk us through some of the opportunities. Jose Antonio Peral, to my immediate left, is the Executive Director of Business Development for ProMéxico. He has spent over 25 years implementing trade and international investment solutions and building strategic alliances between Mexican and foreign companies. ProMéxico is focused on attracting international trade and investments in Mexico and will be responsible to help each and every one of you learn and understand the importance of what Mexico has to offer for your technologies, your products, your services, as it relates to our conversation today. We're also lucky to have Eduardo Macip, who is the CEO of the World Water Project. Eduardo is an expert in technology parks, AgTech and innovation, and water and sewage system management and solutions. He is also an expert in smart cities and has conducted extensive economic research and analysis projects for the IMF. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome today's Mexico panel. And we're going to start off with Jose Antonio Peral with ProMéxico to give us an overview of the great things that the country has to offer. Jose Antonio.
Thank you, Marco. And I feel quite honored to be here, so thank you for the invitation. Before starting, since some of the panelists previously, they were talking about good stories, let me give you a short one. When I got married, my wife told me, you know, you speak a little bit, but you are quite effective. So a few weeks ago, we were talking about the same issue, and she said, you're still effective, but now you speak a lot. You talk a lot. So now I will try to emulate my experience 20 or 25 years ago, and I will try to speak a little bit, and I will do my best to be effective. Otherwise, my wife will be disappointed, and you also will be disappointed. So I'm going to give you some perspectives of how is Mexico doing in business, but I would like to keep in mind three important things in this presentation. First, what does Mexico mean? So I will try to answer that during this presentation. Secondly, why Mexico should be the right partner for you to do business in the AgTech sector. And finally, I will present some challenges and opportunities that we see as a federal government institution related to increase business, trade, strategic alliances, and so on with the world. Since I have only 10 minutes, I will skip this video. So I will start with, from agriculture to AgTech, what are the challenges and opportunities in Mexico? Well, I will start with some ideas about the agribusiness sector in Mexico. So we have more than 2 million square kilometers. We are the 14th largest nation in the world. So we have more than 50 million people, economic active population in Mexico, and 10% of this population is related to the agribusiness sector. So more than 5 million people is working currently in that field. The Mexican processed food, just for give you an idea, it represents more than $52 billion. And the growth of this sector is almost 5%, which is almost twice as much as the overall economy growth rate in Mexico. The main products we are producing is baked goods, dairy, and confectionery. In terms of what is Mexico giving to the world, as you can see, so we are #1 in beer, in avocados, in tomatoes. We have also a producer of meat, tequila, of course. I'm sure that everybody tried that. That's important. Chilies and peppers, cucumbers, and some other products. We are, in Mexico, it represents 32 states, and as you can see, we have many of Mexican as well as multinational companies doing business in Mexico, and if they are there, it's because they are doing great business. They are not in Mexico because they just want to support Mexico, but they are in Mexico because they are doing great business in our country. How about the IT sector in Mexico? Well, it represents 11.3 billion, the IT services and the software development in Mexico. We have more than 4,000 companies located in our country, and there are more than 30 specialized technology parks in information technology. And a good idea that maybe will be official in a few months is that we will start with a free economic zone in Mexico, specialized in the IT business. If that happens, it will represent the possibility for both domestic and international investors to get 10 years no tax for all innovative projects doing business in a specific zone in Mexico. So that's another incentive that officially will be presented quite soon. So this IT sector in Mexico, even though we have companies across the country, those are the states in which we are experiencing more and more companies located in. Okay, so what are the challenges of the implementation of the AgTech in Mexico? Well, we heard from the IDB that by 2050 will be more than 9 billion inhabitants in the planet. So we will need 70% increase in the current production. But most importantly, we will need to see and focus on the different trends. No, the people needs more and more organic products, more natural products, more efficient ways to produce and market those products. So we have to emphasize in the value add for the export sector. So we have to help increase the national content. We have to generate attractive business opportunities to keep on business. We have to provide customers, right, with more innovative and personalized products. So we have to follow those trends. And finally, we have also to consider some savings in terms of production cost. So the combination of the IT services plus the production of good products from the agribusiness, we have the so-called cross-pollination, right? Which is innovation, business development, and IT solutions adoption, which is also a challenge because the farmers, they need to really, be convinced in terms of getting the new technology adopted to the different production processes. So the current situation, as you can see, our companies in Mexico are basically SME, small and medium enterprises. And only less than 5% of the business use the Internet of Things, right? Internet of Cows, somebody may say. So if we are able to adopt and to increase the use of technology in the field, we could see that we could reach 30% growth in the sector, right? The savings in production costs could be reached up to 25% of the production costs, actually. So we have to increase the solutions for Mexican sectors, including the real-time monitoring in the cold chain, the measurement of variables that affect production, such as temperature, humidity, solar radiation, and water acidity. And finally, the decision-making solutions. So how's the trade between the US and Mexico? Mark already mentioned it, but as you can see here in this chart, so the relationship between Mexico and the US is such that it creates a specific synergy. So we are not export only or import only. So we have a deep, deep relationship. So we are selling a lot of products in the United States, but we are buying a lot of products from the United States as well. So this is the concept of strategic partnership. How about with different regions? Well, as you can see in this chart as well, so we have good relationship with other regions in the world, but it's not as deep as the one we have with the United States. But our relationship is increasing with some other regions as well. So what about the emerging tech in agriculture being built in Mexico? We have a program called ProSoft 3.0. And this program is intended by the government, is created by the government in order to really promote the IT services in Mexico and convert or to reach in Mexico the so-called global player in the IT business. And now let me introduce you one of the success stories of small companies that have been supported by the ProSoft 3.0. Okay, so as you can see, we're using sensors, we're using drones, we're using satellites, we're using Internet of Things. But the challenge is to increase the use of those technologies. Now, opportunities in the Mexican market. So if we are using more bio and gene tech, applied to food tech in this regard, AgTech, so the processing, distribution, retail, and wholesale will be more efficient, more productive. So the food and the customer will be the one who will enjoy more this new application of technologies in the agribusiness in Mexico. So just to remember, so we are leader in the agribusiness sector in these products. We are number 1, number 2 exporter worldwide. So we are quite competitive in software development. We are 33% more competitive in this sector compared to other competitors. In case of food processing industry also, we represent the opportunity to do business in Mexico with the 11, roughly speaking, 11% more competitive in this field. And then the question is, why Mexico? So with this information, I truly believe that you will be, really know that Mexico means an excellent investment and commerce opportunity, right? It's the acronym. I just make it up, okay? So it's not what Mexico means, but for this case, it means business. So this is some of the FDI projects already announced in Mexico or recently announced in Mexico. So what I'm trying to say is that really Mexico is open for doing business with the world. So Mexico is quite competitive, and Mexico is always looking for partners under the win-win strategy. We don't just want to export products to the world. We want to buy also products from different countries. We want to find partners and strategic partnership with different countries. And always with the concept of win-win in Mexico. So please keep it in mind in Mexico, and don't forget that from Mexico is here. We have an office in San Francisco. We have an office in LA that are covering in California and many others in the United States and Canada, and 50 offices across the globe. So whenever you reach somebody from Mexico, I'm sure he will be able to help you to find a reliable partner in Mexico. So with this, I will close up my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, José Antonio. Eduardo.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to tell to the people that have been with me 3 days that it was wonderful learning from them, and I'm grateful for all the insight they gave me to the agriculture, which I'm new to it, but I'm happy to be in this sector now. You want to? I'm working right now as a consultant with a New Zealand company. You'll say, why with a New Zealand company? Basically, it's because we find that one state in Mexico, Sonora, deals with the United States, and it's the only state in Mexico that it's allowed to bring a live cattle to the United States. So we want to keep going on with this situation, and what is more important, we want that all the cattle growers to do a much better production and a more quality production. Key elements, I would say, because I want to be fast in this, that we're trying to do an AgTech park that we started one right now in Hidalgo, and we're trying to do one in Sonora together with the New Zealand company that I'm working with. The problem is that we have, as everybody has said, we have to feed a lot of population in 2015, 9 billion. What do we need? We need to increase the investments in the case of Sonora and in the case of Mexico, of production of meat and production of milk. As you know, and I'll go fast in this, Mexico is one of the main buyer of powdered milk from New Zealand. So we also want to help the producers of milk in Mexico to produce more milk. As far as the company that I represent, we have found out that they have a lot of technology in Hawaii. Their technology from the universities, Lincoln University and other training farms in New Zealand, have been, let's say, researched by our company to give us that information and that knowledge so that we can take it back to the farmers. What we want to do is, you heard yesterday that there were laborers that were not very skilled. They are going to give us special courses to people in different areas in the raising of cattle for milk and for meat production, with people from New Zealand to Mexico to make them produce a better quality and a better quantity of milk and of meat. They'll have certificates like the one I'm showing you, just to give you an example, with all these micro-credential approach in different courses that will be given by specialists in the area to do and to copy the more we can their technology, their New Zealand technology, as you know, which is for us the best in Mexico. what are the next steps? Well, what we are going to do is try to have the labor people in Mexico understand how everything is produced and done in New Zealand and try to do it basically the same way to increase our production both in meat and milk. And we're more or less trying to implement this program in 5 years with a mechanism that will be reproduced in all schools in Sonora and in other parts of the country like Hidalgo. We're trying, in the case of the technological part, to do something similar as what they did in Waikato, that for me has a great achievement. You can see that here in this. Waikato did wonderful things regarding a tech park that we're trying to do the same thing in Sonora and in Hidalgo, which in Hidalgo it already started, not in Sonora. And the park companies, as compared to other places, I'm talking about obviously the New Zealand park, they have the greatest companies there. And I think that the solutions that the people from New Zealand are showing us are exactly what I have expected after talking to them in my stay there for 6 months. Well, this is something specifically from the company. At the end, there is a New Zealand fund that we're trying to reach. We don't know yet if we'll be able to do. New Zealand has put $2 million for different countries, and we're trying to reach that fund in the start for a government program together with the farmers, where New Zealand is going to put part of the money, the Mexican government part of the money, and the cattle growers part of the money to do this job that we're telling, because we want to be, if not the best producers, at least the second after New Zealand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. A hand for Eduardo for your insight there and for your work. Jose Antonio, you mentioned the development or announcement that is coming soon in relationship to the focus that ProMexico and really the federal government in general is having on the development of a technology innovation sector. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, and how might someone who's sitting in today's audience tap into that? How is that going to help them? Aside from the tax benefits, what is the advantage and what's the perspective, short-term and long-term, for the government?
Sure. The federal government has created the so-called free economic zone in Mexico. And we have some of the states, particularly the southeast part of Mexico, which are less developed states in Mexico. So it was created, this format, this project, in order to bring more both domestic and international investment into Mexico and create more development in that region. For that matter, this is free economic zone represents the opportunity for investors to enjoy 10 years exemption as an incentive in terms of taxes. But that will apply only in specific areas. And also it's also been included, but it's not official yet, to consider one specific region only for the IT field, IT business. So if that happens, which is going to be very soon, that will be also the possibility to in companies from the innovative sector of the information technology sector to invest also in Mexico and get that incentives as well. But as you know well, the capitals are not moving across the countries because they are looking only incentives. Of course, that's very important. Incentives is very important for the new projects to settle in. But the ecosystem is also very important. So in Mexico, we have the talent. We have the universities that are preparing a lot of engineers. So we are having more than 100,000 engineers be prepared every year in Mexico. So that's a good number, and the talent also in technological universities, as well as technical schools that also are producing the talent that is required by industry. So besides the incentives, the ecosystem in Mexico is having a real impact, And that's why we are seeing more and more companies. And we think that in the years to come, Mexico also will be known as the shared service centers of the Americas. We would like to do that because we think that we have all the elements that are required to succeed in this business as well.
I think we have a couple more minutes for questions from the audience. If you raise your hand, you have 4 minutes. So if you raise your hand and I'll call you, but in the meantime, Eduardo, you spent a lot of time in the management of water and water resources and the environment, the care of the environment. And I think it's something that we value here in the US, and sometimes we don't pay as much attention to it. Can you talk a little bit about some of that experience and how it relates to the work that we're trying to advance in agriculture, but also in technology?
Well, one of the things that is very important to us, especially in the case of Sonora, is that it's a very dry country. So we need, like in California, to optimize the use of water in all aspects. So we have been dealing with different technologies from the States, from Israel also, to make the better use of water, if possible. It's not like we have the water that it's in Brazil. We wish we had that, but we don't have it. So we need to optimize the water. And if anybody would like a copy of my presentation, I will be glad to give it to you. If you give me your email, I'll be glad to send it to you.
Thank you. On the talk about the ecosystem, Jose Antonio, let me go over here, quick question, and then I'll come back to that. Yeah.
The Mexico every year imported the milk powder from the New Zealand. How many tons a year, like metric tons per year?
Do you know the tonnage?
I know that for 40 years we have been importing, but I don't know the amount, but 40 years we have been importing powder milk from New Zealand. After China, I think we're the second importer of milk from New Zealand.
Yeah.
And that milk, let me tell you one thing which is very important also. That milk is given away by the government for only 1 peso per liter. It's really directed to the poor people so that they can have a source of protein.
We don't have the number, but we'll get that to you. We'll have someone from the Pro Mexico. I see you over there, you're waving your hand in the back.
Yes.
No? Okay. 1 more minute. So on the ecosystem, can you talk about the education element to this? Because I think a trained workforce is important in nurturing that ecosystem. So in a minute or less, can you just address that?
I really need to be effective, right?
Yeah.
Well, yes, we have been quite successful in different sectors. When we talk about automotive business, aerospace, method mechanic, and we learned from the past that having the perfect match between the academia, the government, and the private sector working together in order to increase the links and the relationship between the industry and the universities or technical schools that are preparing the labor required by the industry is the so-called dual system. So we're trying to do this in all the states in different sectors. So that's why we understand and we know that being also effective for the IT business in Mexico, the innovation and technology all together. So we need to prepare and bring into the job market students already prepared. We have universities, for instance, that in the last year they are working together with the industry. So the last year of the university, they are working in current projects with the industry. So when they finish the university, the jobs are ready for them, waiting for them, because they know, not only from the theoretical standpoint, but from practice. So that combination between theoretical issues and praxis are making more and more efficient the new students finishing schools.
Thank you. Look, I think as we're done here on this panel, I've been working on the Mexico-U.S. relationship since I was 22 years old and mayor of the largest border city in Arizona, which is Nogales. And as you begin to look at developing your technologies and as you look at the world, I really do consider the unique abilities and expertise that Mexico brings us, because it's not only an international location compared to where we are sitting today, but they're really our neighbor. And because they are our neighbor, They understand us better, they know us better, and it's only literally a 2.5-hour flight to the border where you could go check on the productivity of your workforce. So anyways, thank you all very much. We appreciate your attention. And again, congratulations to the Silicon Valley Forum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.